Hi guys, it's been a really long time since I've made a video and I just came to check in on everybody, see how everyone's doing. I'm really sorry I haven't uploaded in so long. And literally the last time I uploaded a proper speaking video was when I was talking about my teaching journey, or like the start of my teaching journey in Korea. As you can tell, that was 6 months ago. Was it? It was a long time ago. It was like 6 months ago. I'm not in Korea. I'm still in the UK, as you can tell. No teaching happened within those 6 months. But basically what happened is I knew that I wouldn't be able to get my documents in time. I knew that I wouldn't be able to get my my degree in time. And so, I hadn't graduated at the time, and it was just not possible for me to get a teaching job. And so, in the last episode, or in episode 1, you guys saw like me talking to recruiters and getting like interviews with recruiters, but sadly I got ghosted by most of them because I didn't have my any of my documents ready. And because I didn't have my documents ready, most recruiters just ignore you because you're basically wasting their time. And I mean, I get it, yeah. If I don't have my documents ready, it means I'm not actually planning to go to Korea, or like it's not possible for me to go to Korea. So, you know. But anyway, so at that time, it was not happening, basically. It just wasn't happening. So, fast forward 6 months and I'm graduated. I finally got all of my documents ready. I'm making a video about like sending off documents and all of that stuff. I didn't make any type of video about actually getting the documents. There's a lot of information online about how to get your degree apostilled and like how to get your criminal background check apostilled and all of that. So I wasn't going to make a video on that. But I thought a great way to do episode 2 of this Teaching in Korea series is to kind of basically kick off from where I left it off. So where I left it off was getting interviews with recruiters. That's where we stopped. I had my recruiters interviews. We spoke about our preferences and what I wanted. My preferences actually kind of changed over time. When I was talking to the recruiters in the previous video, I was telling them that I wanted kindergarten jobs for 9 to 6 a.m. In Seoul. Seoul hasn't changed. I've started to realise that I kind of want to teach older kids. If you guys want to know about the teaching job that I got and how I got it, stay tuned because I'm going to talk about my Hagwon interview experiences and the questions that I got asked in the interviews, and also the questions that I asked myself and the questions that you guys should also be asking in your interviews. The first thing that I wanted to talk about is just basically how did I go from getting interviews with recruiters to actually getting interviews with hagwons? If you're going the recruiter route, if you're just going direct, then you'll just get an interview straight away to your hagwon. But if you're using a recruiter and you had your interview with them and you've told them all of your preferences, if they listen to what you want, they will email you with a few job offers. So the first thing that happens is you will get emailed job offers. You will get emailed like job positions and if you want to interview with this job. Depending on the recruiter, they might push a few specific schools that don't have the best reputation. Obviously it depends on the branch and it depends on your management. But there are a few big chains that have, kind of some like posts on the blacklist. I'll post the blacklist down below if you guys want to check it out because it's really helpful. But then again, I just want to disclaimer, you should take the blacklist with a grain of salt. Don't you just take that for all what it is, because again, it's everyone's personal experience. So but it is still helpful. And I'll also post the green list down below. I didn't even explain what they are. The blacklist is kind of bad schools that have been put on there, teachers have put those schools on there and spoken about their experiences. And then the green list is basically the opposite of that, so it's good schools and like their good experiences. So I'll put those down below. But basically, so the first thing, back to what we was talking about before, is recruiters will give you some positions, and they'll be like, so this school is this time to this time, it's this age, and it's this salary, and these people want to interview you. And remember, you might get the big chain schools pushed on you. If you're interested in that, then I think doing the interview anyway is great practice. So I got a few of those big schools. I did do the interviews just because I needed some type of practice and like start point to kind of see where my interview see what it's going to be like to interview with those schools. But I didn't go with those big chain schools. But anyway, so yeah, they will do that, and they'll say, can you interview at this time and this time on Skype or on Zoom or whatever. Usually it's Skype. And yeah, so you will then need to get ready for your interview, and that's step 2. So now you've secured an interview, the first thing to think about is what they might ask you in the interview. So I'm going to let you guys know a few questions that interviewers might ask you and how you might be able to answer them. And also, it really depends on the interview, but some interviews don't even ask you that many questions at all. Some interviews just look at your CV, they'll ask you about the CV in particular, and then they'll be like, okay, cool, and then they'll leave it at that. And sometimes you get the job and sometimes you don't. So I mean, you get interviews like that, and then you also get really, really in-depth interviews. Some of my interviews lasted like an hour because we were just talking so much. So it really does depend on the school and the interviewer. You could be asked no questions, you could be asked billion questions. So it really does depend. These questions will include, why do you want the job? Why do you want to come to Korea? They usually ask why Korea, and then that is your choice what you want to answer to that question. I would try and integrate something about teaching within that question too. Another question that they might ask is, can you tell me about your experiences teaching? In this case, if you don't have any experience teaching, then I would kind of talk about any other experiences that you've had and then link it to teaching. So for example, if you've had experience, working as a team, like even in a restaurant or something, or like serving, or like in anywhere, talk about how that makes you a good team leader, how that makes you a good team worker, or like how that makes you persevere. Whatever is like, you can connect to teaching, it would be great. So even if you don't have any teaching experience, it will be good to talk about what you have done and then connect it to teaching yourself. And another question that they might ask you in the interviews are, usually they would give you a scenario. So like, if there is like a misbehaving child, how would you deal with that? Stuff like that. They usually ask you about kind of, if there is a misbehaving child, how would you deal with it? So you can make of that question as you will. You can talk about if you would kind of take them outside, or if you would discipline them, or if you would kind of try and find the root cause of why they are being disruptive, or you could talk about how they might not actually be understanding the work and that's why they are being frustrated. And then anything like there are loads and loads of possibilities to answer that question, and it's really up to your teaching methodology and your teaching philosophies. So I'm not going to like give you a model answer to that question, but that is definitely a question that they might ask you in the interviews. Another question that they might ask you in the interviews is, how would you teach this certain grammar point? What's the word? How would you teach a certain vocabulary? How would you teach this? Any kind of language point, they might ask you about a specific one and how you would teach it. Or could you come up with like a quick lesson? If I got a question like that, I'm not gonna lie, I would probably be really surprised, and I don't know how I'd answer it straight, just like right there. But some people do get those questions, so just have in your head, a simple lesson plan, and then like how you would teach a certain lesson. I think that's really helpful as well. So that's another question that they might ask you. Other questions that they might ask you is just, have you been to Korea before? They might ask you about culture shock. Anything that's not related to teaching, they'll probably relate it to Korea or moving abroad, like how do you deal with homesickness and all of that. It really does depend on your interview, but those were a few questions that they might ask you in your interview. Now I'm going to move on to interview questions that you might want to ask your interviewer after the interview is done, or like when they ask if you want to ask some questions. one red flag that you guys should consider is that if they refuse to answer the question truthfully, or they are kind of beating around the bush a little bit and trying to just ignore the question or like get around not answering the question, then take that how you will. Personally, it's a red flag, and if they don't want to answer the question truthfully, then I just stop. Okay, but anyway, with that said, I'm going to let you guys know now the questions that I asked my interviews. And also I did these at the end of the interview. So after they asked me questions, then I asked them questions. Usually they'll be like, do you have any questions? And then it's the time for you to ask questions. Now, these aren't all questions that I asked, but these are all questions that I wrote down on my list. And then I kind of chose which ones were appropriate for that certain interview. So for example, if they had already mentioned how many hours that I would be working, then I wouldn't ask them how many hours would I be working, obviously. So the first question that I didn't always ask the school because it depended on whether they actually was talking about it. How did you handle the Rona situation? I don't want to say the full word just in case I get demonetized. But how did you handle the Rona situation? Did you guys go online? Were teachers being paid for teaching online? Did you still have to go into the school? Anything that has anything to do with Rona, then it's great to ask, especially in this time. You don't really know what's going to happen with it. You don't know whether the school is going to close again, whether, you don't really know what's going to happen. So it's a great idea to ask about how they dealt with it. So that's the first question that is on my list. Okay, and the second question that you should always be asking, because it's very important to know, is how many teaching hours are there in a week, in a day, in a month, whatever. You should always know how many teaching hours you will be teaching. Personally, I think anything above 25 hours is too much. 25 hours a week. So that's 5 hours of teaching per day. Some hagwons will be telling you to teach 7 hours a day. Or, I don't think... I think that's too much. I think that's too much for any teacher. Like an English teacher, it's too much for any teacher, especially when you are considering your prep time. And the third question it leads me on to my third question, which is how much prep time do you get during school hours? It's really important to ask how much prep time you will have during your school hours, because you want to know whether you're going to be going home and prepping in your free time. Because at the end of the day, when your school life takes over your home life and you are prepping and prepping and prepping, because you are teaching all day and then you go home and you have to prep, you're going to start feeling burnout really, really quickly. So, ask whether you're getting a certain block of time every day to prepare lessons, because it will really, really, really be important and really help you in the long run, especially, if you have more teaching hours a day, for example, 6 teaching hours or 7 teaching hours a day. It's a lot. And you should definitely consider that. So that's the third question. The fourth question is about training. Is there any training? How long do I get for training? What kind of training do I get? How much do I get paid for training? So any questions regarding training is really important to ask. Some hagwons will just get you to jump right into the job. You're not going to get any training. And if you're fresh out of university and you're going into a hagwon job and it's your first time teaching, that can really take a toll on you. When you go into your first job and you're not even trained, that is So definitely training, ask about training. How much you get paid for training is really important as well. Make sure that you're getting paid enough for training. I don't really know if there's a legal amount that you have to be paid for training. You guys should work that out for yourselves. But that's important. You should know how much you're getting paid for training and how long you get trained. Some hagwons give you 2 weeks training, which is just like shadowing classes and whatever. Some hagwons give you 2 days training, and some hagwons give you 0 training. So it's really important to ask about that too. The next question, I can't remember what number this was, 5, I think, is about lunchtime. Do I get a break? Do I get a lunch break? Now, if you're working 9 to 6 or like a 9 to 5 or whatever, then you would probably get a lunch break. And that means you're going to be teaching kindy, most likely if you're teaching 9 to 6. You should ask, if you do get a lunch break, do I have to eat lunch with the kids? Because this is going to sound kind of bad, but when you're having a lunch break and you're doing it with the kids, that means it's not really a lunch break. You're still working. You have to supervise the kids. You have to sit and eat with the kids. You have to talk to the kids, which means essentially you're still working and it's not actually a break time. So you should always make sure whether you need to sit with the kids at lunch break, or you get to go to your own, like if you get to like either leave the hagwon or leave the school, or go to the staff room or whatever and be able to eat your lunch alone, because it is kind of up to preference, but it's pretty important to consider that too. So, or ask about your lunch break, how long you get. Legally, if you're working 8 hours a day, you should be getting an hour lunch break. So make sure you are getting your break. Okay, the next thing, number 6, I think, ask about how many vacation days you get. Usually on your first year in Hagwon, you will get 10 vacation days. That is the standard. It's so much less than what you would get in the UK. I don't know about America or any other countries, but in the UK we get like a month off. So if you are coming from a full-time job in the UK where you get like 28 days holiday to a hagwon job in Korea where you only get 10, it might be a bit of a shock to the system. But that is just how it is. So ask about how many vacation days you get. Also ask about if you get all of your red days off. Now red days are national holidays in Korea. So Chuseok, Seollal, like Christmas, all of those things are all red days, or Buddha's birthday or whatever. Those are all red days, and you should really be getting those off. Now, I'm not 100% sure if this is accurate, so don't quote me on it, but the law at the moment is that if you are in an establishment with less than 30 employees, your employer is not actually your employer is not actually obliged to give you all of your red days off, which kind of sucks, but I mean, that's how it is. That's how the Korean law is at the moment. But I heard that the Korean law is actually changing in 2022, where regardless of the number of employees you have, I think it's if you have more than 5 employees in your establishment, then you are liable for those vacation days. Not vacation days, red days. So make sure if you get all of your red days off, and make sure that's in your contract. But I will talk about the contract. I might actually talk about the contract in another video. Another question is obviously the age of your students that you're going to be teaching. You should always be asking what age you should be teaching. You're going to be teaching. It's really important. Another question that you should be asking is how many students are going to be in your class, or like what is the maximum amount of students that are going to be in your class, because it kind of gives you an idea of how big your classes are going to be. Usually when in hagwons, it's kind of unusual to see more than 12 students in a classroom, but it does happen, especially in the big chains. And so you should always be aware of how many students you will actually be in your classes. The more the students, the less you are able to kind of help them individually. Another question that you guys should ask in your interview, obviously there are a lot of questions. You guys can pick out whatever questions you feel is important to you. But another question that you should ask in your interview is whether you will get your flight reimbursed or whether they will pay for your flight. With these days with the virus and everything, it's kind of usual for them to reimburse you for your flights instead of them buying your flights. So you should, make sure you know what's going on with that one too. Another really important question that you should ask is about your overtime. So you can ask if you will be required to work overtime. most likely you will. In some cases, you probably will be asked to work overtime. And in those cases, how much will you be paid to work overtime? You guys can search it up on I will link below also the Korean labor law or whatever it's called, so you can make sure that is right, because I'm not 100% sure. But anyway, there is a certain amount that you should be paid for overtime, so make sure that you are being paid that amount for overtime, and make sure that they are not making you work more than whatever is the maximum amount of overtime that you can work. I think it's I don't want to say numbers because I'm not 100% sure, and I've got them in my head somewhere. But, okay, I'm not 100% sure if I can think of any more questions at the moment. So those are just some of the questions that you should think about asking in your interview. And then what I would suggest is when your interview is finished, you guys should ask for pictures of your apartment, just because it does really help your decision to know exactly what your apartment looks like. And obviously an apartment shouldn't control your whole decision, but personally for me, if my apartment isn't homely, then I will feel a bit out of place and I don't think I'll feel comfortable at all. So ask about your apartment after the interview. And why I say after the interview is because it could come across as a little bit, what's the word? I don't want to say spoiled, but I think it shouldn't be the number one thing that you should be concerned about, especially during an interview. So definitely ask about your apartments and stuff. So yeah. Your interview is now finished, and part 3, or like step 3 of this process, is waiting for a job offer. So depending on if they liked you or not, then you could get a job offer on the same day. Sometimes you could get job offers 1 or 2 days afterwards, and usually your recruiters would let you know. So if they liked you, they would say, oh yeah, we liked you, we liked your interview, and we'd like to give you a contract. Now comes the time where you have to read your contract and sign your contract if you want to take the job. Now I'm going to make this into a part 2 because I feel like this is a bit long already. So if you want to see part 2 about things that you should look out for in a contract, red flags in contracts, good things about certain contracts, and things that you should consider before signing your contract, then give this video a thumbs up and I will definitely get on to making that video. And also I'm going to be making a lots of more videos because I'm nearly going to Korea. It's like 3 weeks away. So excited. So I'm going to be making a lot more vlogs and a lot more informative videos about the teaching process and applying for jobs, and also life in Korea in general. So if you guys have any ideas about videos that you guys want to see, please give me a comment down below. It would help me so much because I am not creative at all and I can't think of any ideas myself, so I need your help. Okay, so that's about it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope it wasn't too long, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye guys.